So I talked to Runner Reviews like a week ago. I think that was the last time we had like a chat, like over the microphone and stuff, not a type chat. And he asked me, well, if you're such a big DC fan, like why are you only reviewing Marvel books, or why are you only like reviewing these other books except DC ones if you're such a big fan of the company and they're all their heroes and stuff? And so I had decided to basically check out a book that's kind of been piquing my interest recently, and mostly because everyone knows, what are the best DC books right now. It's kind of pointless to even review them. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Supergirl and stuff. Justice League. All those books. Those are pretty much the best books of the whole DC lineup, and it felt kind of pointless to even review them. So I decided to check out a book that I was kind of excited about when the New 52 was starting out. I kind of liked the first issue, where the one where Joker gets his face cut off and that pays off in the death of the family. But as the storylines went on, it really didn't click for me. I really didn't like where it was going and stuff, so I dropped the book. And then I've heard some good stuff about John Layman's run on Detective Comics. And, I saw some of the artwork. It looked really, really good. And so I decided to check out his entire Emperor Penguin story arc, which starts at issue 13 and it concludes at issue 20. Now, one of my biggest fears with going into this thing was that this run was going on exactly the same time as Death of the Family and the Requiem stuff. And so I thought that this crossover stuff was just going to fuck up his story, and that it was just going to ruin what could be a potentially pretty good story arc. What's really great about it here is that Layman uses the stuff like Death of the Family and Requiem to tell his story. It adds to his story. He finds a way to make it all connected without it feeling contrived and stuff, and it actually adds to his Emperor Penguin arc. And the main point of the Penguin arc is that Cobblepot basically comes to the realization that no one in Gotham loves him. Everyone respects him, everyone fears him, but when he's gone, all people are going to say about him is that he's corrupted, rich guy. He's a criminal, he's a scumbag. No one's going to love him, no one's going to remember him fondly and stuff. So at the beginning of the story arc, he tries to, make this different image about himself. He tries to improve the public perception of him. And then the Joker comes back. The Joker drags him over to Arkham Asylum so that he can prepare his old trap for Batman that you see in the main Batman book in Death of the Family. And then his lieutenant, Ojili, I don't know how his name is spelled. Like, I think he's Russian or something. But his lieutenant, who's this nobody, no one knows this guy. He's basically seen every aspect of Penguin's organization, from the very bottom to the very top. He started as this petty thief for Penguin, then he slowly got Penguin's trust. He became his right-hand man in the present arc, and he spent 5 years getting to the top, of the food chain in Penguin's organization. And then when Penguin is dragged away by the Joker for his whole crazy Death of the Family scheme, Ojali basically seizes his opportunity and he takes control of the whole Gotham underworld, and he proclaims himself Emperor Penguin. And no one knows about this guy. Like, even Batman admits, I barely knew about this guy. I mean, I knew he existed, but he never really stood out in something. And I can't believe I'm going to reference this, but Adrich Killian in Iron Man 3 says that anonymity was his greatest weapon. And the same thing is here. This guy has just sort of stayed out of the shadows. People know he exists, but he's never really stood out for everything. And even though he seems like just this kind of thug, this obedient dog to Penguin, he's actually this great manipulator and stuff, and he's been planning this for 5 years. He's been slowly biding his time until the perfect opportunity came for him to take over Penguin's organization. All that stuff is really good. He's a really well-written character. He's basically Aldrich Killian done right, and he actually has more dimension to him because he also has something in common with Penguin. He even says at the end, even though my reign was short, people will remember me. I've left my mark on Gotham forever. Everyone's gonna know who I am for all time, long after I'm gone. It doesn't matter how they remember me, I'm gonna be remembered. And that was really, really cool. And he's basically Aldrich Killian, except he actually has a character and he has dimension. He's just not a one-dimensional douchebag who threw a hissy fit and became a sociopath because Tony Stark was a douchebag to him at a party once. But I'm not going to get into that again. John Layman has a fantastic voice for Batman in this. In fact, this whole story arc, this whole book right now, it feels like if the animated series was a movie, this would be like the R-rated version of that. And this isn't overtly violent, but there is some really disturbing stuff in this book. And I think the best parts of this book are actually the death of the family tie-in stuff, because the death of the family issues, they basically explore the psychological effect Joker has on people. John Layman basically says that Joker is a force of nature, like in The Dark Knight. This is an idea that was kind of introduced to me in The Dark Knight. That Joker's very presence creates insanity, that he's able to touch this primal aspect of us, of people, and that his very presence affects people differently. If you're a sane person, you're going to be afraid of him. But just his laugh, just his very presence, his very existence is able to compel these psychologically troubled people to basically worship him as a god and model themselves after him. And that's what happens in the story arc. Joker's been gone for a year. He's come back. Everyone knows he's come back. And then you have all these psychologically troubled people who used to be, perfectly normal, right in the head. They acted normal. And then when the Joker came back, they just completely snapped. They started putting makeup on themselves like Joker clowns. They just go completely batshit insane. And some of the things they do here are just absolutely frightening. And it's really goddamn scary. This book is able to make Joker frightening without him even being in the book. You literally see Joker in one or two panels, and you never see him again in Detective Comics because he's attacking other members of the Bat family. But his presence is felt here, and that's one of the big parts of that whole Joker mini arc in this book. His very presence can be felt throughout Gotham. And when he's there, he's there, and that translates to us, the reader. And I thought that was really damn cool, and just all the psychological stuff with these people, just how Joker can break them just by existing, is awesome. There's even a psychological description of how it starts. Something bad happens to these people in their lives. They think their lives are over, and just like another character in the movie I can't remember said, no, it's in the Walking Dead game. One guy basically says people go insane when they think their lives are over. So, and this guy abuses this. He even tells another physicist before that dude, sends him to Arkham Asylum. He basically tells them that it's the same sob story all over again. My wife left me, my kid died, I lost my job or something. And all of these people had something really terrible happen to them in their lives, and they basically snapped because they thought their lives were over. And then they basically, for some reason, they get this psychological obsession with the Joker. They start collecting newspaper clips of him. They put these newspaper clippings of his crimes all over their apartments. They start drawing pictures of the Joker. They start masking themselves as the Joker, and then it just escalates until they become psychotic murderers, just like the Joker. And that was just really fucking creepy, and that was awesome. And there's even a ray of hope. Layman easily could have made it a hopeless situation where, the second these guys get corrupted by the Joker, they are fucked. They are never going to get normal. There's this one kid, this 14-year-old, who had a pretty bad tenure at high school. People treated him like shit in high school. He went, crazy. He burned his whole family alive, and then he joins these other psychotic murderers called the League of Smiles, and they're basically this insane dentist who rips people's teeth out while he operates on them. This crazy catering baker lady who slices people up, and then he joins these guys, and they're about to burn down this whole hospital with these hostages, and this kid is like, no, I don't want to be like these guys, and he lets the hostages go. And it shows that while the Joker's presence is very powerful, it's very corrupting. There are people out there besides Batman and besides the Bat family who are able to keep it at bay, and that there is hope for these people. These guys can be cured. It's very difficult, but they can be fixed. And I thought that was a slight ray of hope in what's ultimately a really, really fucking depressing storyline. And it's just great. And in fact, this is what I've wanted Detective Comics to be. It's basically like this organized crime book. This is basically Batman going after organized crime in Gotham City. The rest of the Bat family shows up here and there, but this book is really about Batman being a detective, shaking down thugs, going after the criminal underworld, solving mysteries and stuff, piecing together pieces of the puzzle until he figures everything out. And there's so much is set up in this one story, and it's all paid off. Like this was even the story arc that introduced the whole concept of Poison Ivy and Clayface getting married. It's a shame that it gets broken up like an issue later, which was kind of sad. But the effect it has on Batman, Poison Ivy, and Clayface is all really good, because for the first time in a long time, Clayface actually thinks he loves someone. Clayface typically doesn't give a shit. He's portrayed as not giving a fuck. But then he meets Poison Ivy, who brainwashes him, and he's basically dirt. Poison Ivy can control him in a way she can't control people. She can control him completely because he's dirt and a person, kind of, and she completely controls him. And that makes him fall in love with her. He genuinely loves her, and then when Batman snaps him out of it, he just freaks out and he runs away because he felt something for another person, and he basically got his heart broken, and that was just really sad. And even Batman says, I almost feel sorry for the guy. If he wasn't a scumbag criminal, I would actually genuinely feel sorry for the guy for actually feeling something for another person again. And Batman's relationship with Poison Ivy in the New 52 is kind of interesting too, because she worked with the Birds of Prey originally, and then she left the team, and she became a villain again, which I'm kind of pissed about, because I like the idea of her kind of being a hero or anti-hero type of thing. But because she helped Batman out earlier on, he actually tries to reason with her, basically tells her, look, we don't have to fight. I get you're trying to do the right thing, but you're going about the wrong way of doing it. So let me help you. We don't have to fight. We can just settle this peacefully. And of course, it doesn't work out, but it's cool that Batman's willing to, even after all the things these people have done, he's still willing to give them a shot. I think the only villain he actually doesn't think can be cured is Joker, because Joker is just insanity incarnate, just like Batman is order incarnate. And I don't think he ever thinks the Joker can be cured. But it was really cool to see that Batman can actually still sympathize with these guys, even though they've tried to kill him God knows how many times in the past. And that was really cool of him. And it shows that Batman is still human behind that rough exterior. And all the characterization stuff, it feels like the animated series. Like I said, this is the animated series if it was like a live-action movie and it was rated R. And there's just some really disturbing stuff here, but the violence serves the story. It never gets overly grotesque. And the art in this book is just really, really damn good. Jason Fabok, I don't know how you say that because no one's names are said in comic books, but Jason Fabok's art is just amazing. This is like Jim Lee quality art that's delivered on a monthly basis. As far as I know, he's still on the book. He's delivering this on a monthly basis, and the quality of the art is like Jim Lee level. That's my opinion. I really, really love the art. There are so many shots of Batman where you don't see his face. His face is covered up in the shadows, but you can see his white eyes, just like in the animated series. I love shots like that. The action scenes are really dynamic. They're really fast-paced. You can actually see, that Batman knows what the hell he's doing. There's a lot of cool things done with the art. Like when Batman hits the guy's trigger points, you see these faint images of him hitting the guy at various points in his body, and then the dude just falls down unconscious, and it's really cool. And overall, this is what I've wanted Detective Comics to be for a long time. My only real complaint with this is that the Requiem stuff, it ties into the Requiem thing with Robin being dead. That stuff's barely referenced. Batman just tells Alfred, "Oh, I warned Damian to be careful not too long ago," and he even cries over his grave, which should be a touching scene, but it gets brushed aside really quickly. The Requiem stuff isn't particularly strong. Issue 19 has a lot of this. Issue 19 of Detective Comics is basically the 900th issue of Detective Comics like ever made. It has a lot of these other side stories that don't really fit in with the Emperor Penguin plot. And I was really confused about some of the crime lords these guys had. Like, there weren't the Falcones or anything. They were just like these random generic D-list supervillain type guys, and it just felt kind of weird. But besides some of those small problems, I just really, really love this. Like, this is a book I'm really gonna read monthly from now on. I got introduced to Layman's book with the Wrath issue number 22, where Wrath shows up. That was really good. And then going back and retracing all of his Emperor Penguin stuff, all this is just fantastic. Like, this is something I've been waiting for. It feels like I'm watching the animated series all over again. The characterization is spot on. I just can feel Bruce Timm and Paul Dini's Batman here. Their Alfred, their Poison Ivy, their Clayface, all that stuff's here. It's all exceptionally well written. The themes and ideas about the Joker, his effect on people, and the idea of legacy and leaving a mark on your city, all that stuff's really, really good. And overall, I just love this book. Like, this is like an A- for me. That's my rating, A-. I highly recommend that you guys go back and check this stuff out. It's really, really good, and I just can't recommend it any more than I already have. So yeah, check John Layman's Detective Comics out. Believe me, you will not be disappointed. And if you're a fan of the animated series, you're gonna eat this shit up like nobody's business. Okay, it's that good.